March 16th, and roll call and posting of the agenda.
Councilmember Basua. Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald.
Here.
Councilmember Madrigal. Councilmember Perrello.
Here.
Councilmember Turan.
Here.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Announcement. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54952.3, each member of the Housing Board of Commissioners present will receive $50 pay for convening this meeting. Also, the agenda for this meeting was posted in the City Hall Bulletin on March 4th, 2021. Thank you.
Okay. We going into closed session, but we have a public speaker, and that's Mr. Larry Stein.
Mayor, Mr. Larry Stein is not available at the moment for public comment.
Okay. We don't see him up there, do you? Okay. So then we're going to be going into closed session. Mr. City Attorney, like to share? Do you want to share some comments first? Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the City Council will recess to a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1 to confer with its attorneys. The matters being discussed are City of Oxnard versus Fox Canyon Groundwater Management Agency and City of Oxnard versus Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck LLP.
Okay, and we'll return at 6 o'clock. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any announcements from closed session?
Mayor, the council was briefed on the two listed items on the closed session agenda. No other reports.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Okay, our next item is opening ceremonies, and it's going to be the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States. But I have a little bio I'd like to share with you for this individual that passed. And I'd like to read it with the permission of the City Council. The Art Rodriguez is best known. This is a moment of silence for the young man, Art Rodriguez. Arturo Rodriguez is best known as the community as Art. He has been known for his upbeat attitude and keen attention to details. He joined the City of Oxnard Recreation Community Service Division in February 2003 and recently celebrated 18 years of service with the city. A lover of history and children, Art created his own costumes and made appearances at summer day camps and special population events where he taught fun, educational sessions to participants. His athletic background and level-headed demeanor led Art to serve as a lead referee for the City of Oxnard youth sports, basketball, and flag football programs. His favorite assignment, however, was coaching. He worked as a special education and gave him the perfect demeanor and creativity for working with the Colonia Gym youth basketball players. Art taught with a purpose at heart. He taught with a purpose at heart. His team has always been the best of his records in this division. However, on March 4th, 2020, Art's supervisor received a celebratory text message from Art saying that he was at UCLA Medical Center and just received his first kidney transplant. He says, no joke, tell everybody, I just received a transplant. After years of dialysis, Art's co-workers jumped with joy with this announcement. However, yesterday, over 18 years of his work with the City of Oxnard. So today, after the pledge, please join me in a moment of silence in remembrance of Art Rodriguez. Thank you. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay. Okay, our next item is public comments not on the agenda. And we have about 7 speakers, and I'd like to call them as we start here. The first person is Pat Brown.
Mayor, Ms. Pat Brown is not available.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Douglas Partello, followed by Steve Nash. Douglas Partello.
Mr. Portello, please unmute by pressing *6.
Yes, hi.
Yes, hi. You have 3 minutes to speak, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. There is a long history of mismanagement of the L&D funds and decades-long neglect of maintenance of public space landscaping, parks, medians, and streets. Many promises have been made with Measure O and more recently with Measure E to improve and enhance these services. It is all brought to the fore now with a Renew program campaign to roll the LMDs into CFDs. Make no mistake, all paths lead to Melrose with the Renew program. They are trying to convince us to volunteer, give us useless, powerless CAGs, all overseen by NBS, an outside consulting firm, and place the entire burden on us with Melrose taxes. Staff says no, but the engineer's report is clear. where 30% of our LMD monies are going. Community Outreach for CFDs is the title of that line item. NBS is being paid over $400,000 of the $1.4 million in the LMD's fund. Only 27 of these LMDs are targeted, as others do not have sufficient funds to pay NBS. The use of these funds for this purpose, I believe, is illegal. There is no stipulated purpose like this in the 1972 Landscaping and Lighting Act, just for maintenance. Some serious questions about the admin fees have been coming up in years past, which go into the general fund. And they were raised by Michael Gleason and others. And some LMDs are charged 2 to 3 times the amount for maintenance, the actual cost of electricity and water costs. Now that is just horrible administration of those funds, or something is not right in the state of Denmark. An audit was done by NBS for the city back in 2016. That report was held confidential in a closed session 3-2 vote. At subsequent city council meetings, citizens asked to see the audit, were given a number of dubious reasons like attorney-client privilege, and then another time draft exemption, which only applies to drafts not retained. And this clearly does not fit that category. So it sat quiet until January 30th of 2018, when Bert and Oscar asked the city council to bring this up as an agenda item. They were voted down 2-3. We have 4 new city council members now since the audit and the vote to keep it secret. It's time our city leaders clean up this mess and prioritize what should have been done long ago and give us that audit. We paid for the work, much of which was not done, and the audit. It's ours. We have a right to see it. We have paid for maintenance that was not done or extremely poorly done. It's hard for Danielle and Pablo from MBS to say, trust us with this new program with such a horrible history, a lack of transparency and accountability. No matter what was done in the past, covering up those mistakes should not be a part of the legacy that our current leaders are establishing. Make good on campaign
5
promises
seconds.
and deliver in the budget priorities. The 5-year plan makes no mention of landscaping, parks, and streets. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Steve Nash, followed by Maya Shi. Steve Nash.
Mr. Nash? Mr. Nash, you may unmute by pressing *6.
Thank you, Mayor Zaragoza, City Council members, City Manager, and City staff. I am urging you to officially honor our own Lupe Anguiano, short history. She worked with Cesar Chavez and in Michigan, where she led the Great Boycott of 1965. In 1973, she became national organizer for the United Farm Workers and founded the National Women's Employment and Education Incorporated. She is a founding member of the National Women's Political Caucus and has worked on behalf of the Equal Rights Amendment. She was a delegate to the historic First Women's Conference in Houston in 1977. She has volunteered at the California Coastal Protection Network, the Pacific Environment, and other environmental organizations. She was designated a Women's History Month honoree by the National Women's History Project. She has been an incredible advocate for environmental stewardship in Oxnard and Ventura County, fighting against the Pointe Power Project and the practice of fracking. So I urge you to honor this incredible force in nature while she is still with us. All too often, we let the opportunity slip away while these great warriors are still living. She just celebrated her 92nd birthday and is currently living in Arizona, but that doesn't negate the fact of all of her hard work she's done locally. Oxnard, and on a similar note, Oxnard has had some wonderful and powerful warriors. Miss Anguiano is certainly at the forefront of them. Also, imagine a Latinx Hall of Fame. Imagine it at the Carnegie Art Museum. Imagine transforming the Carnegie into a center of Hispanic art. Imagine getting a portion of Cheech Marin's art collection that we let slip away to Riverside. Oxnard, we can do this. You want to activate downtown? think big. We can have a Hispanic cultural arts center that would drive an incredible amount of business to the downtown. We would have, thousands of families eager to support this iteration of the Carnegie. Right now, I kind of look at the Carnegie as just a dusty and dry museum that's
30
activated.
seconds.
Let's honor our Hispanic heritage, and let's honor Lupe Anguiano. It's way past time. So thank you for your time, and I hope that at least a few of the council members will take this up and do the right thing. Thank you, and good evening.
Thank you, Steve. She is a great lady, Lupe, and living over in Arizona has done a lot for Oxnard. Thank you so much for that. Our next speaker is Maya Shi, followed by Larry Stein.
Mayor, Maya, she is not available. However, Mr. Stein is on the line.
Larry Stein is available? Is?
Mr. Stein is
Okay.
on the line.
Okay, be Stein, then followed by Alicia Parcell. Thank you.
Mr. Stein?
Good evening, staff, members of the City Council. I'm somewhat concerned because on the presentation of the agenda for this evening, I'd asked to speak on a closed session item. I was given a password and code and everything like that for the meeting. I'm like, use that number in meeting. I was not available to access the meeting for the special council meeting. I'm asking questions on the credits and water credits we're supposed to be getting and we're actually not getting. I sent emails to our city council members. I sent email to our new interim public works director. When I spoke to the mayor this morning, he indicated somebody from public works would get back to me. At 2 o'clock, nobody had gotten back to me, so I sent an email off to our interim public works director. He indicated a member of staff would get back to me. A member of staff never got back to me. This speaks of the credibility of our staff. People say they're going to do things and they don't. I'd like to know what our water credits are, what do we have available to us, and how much do we use? How many water credits are we generating each year from the GREAT program? How much of that water credit can we actually use? I'm in the belief that we are generating water credits that we cannot use. People talk about the GREAT program and creating benefits for the 40,000 people paying on this. We're not getting any benefit. The water credits apparently have no benefit because there's no value to them. I've been told that we're trying that Fox County is actually trying to reduce our water credits from what we actually allocated. We have thousands of acres of agricultural land that was converted to housing and industrial properties. We're still getting water credits for that. But reality is there's no water behind the water credits. So the presumption of getting water credits in the GREAT program is preposterous because the water doesn't exist for these water credits. So this is a future benefit and not an actual benefit. And Prop 218 is very clear on the instructions. People are not supposed to be getting paid for future benefits. 3 entities, the 5 entities are getting great water, but not paying the operational costs, not paying the debt service, not paying for infrastructure improvements. Who's paying for that? 40,000 plus ratepayers are paying for all these improvements for the AWT and the wells. We're not getting any benefit. A violation of Prop 218, and the city attorney denies that we're breaking the law. 805-824-4978 is my phone number. 805-824-4978. I'd like somebody to call me and talk to me about this issue. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alicia Parcell, followed by Aaron Starr.
Mayor, we also have Miss Pat Brown back on the line and
Okay.
Maya Shi.
We'll get Pat Brown after the Alicia and Aaron.
Sure. Miss Alicia Purcell? You may unmute by pressing *6.
Okay.
Okay, you have 3
Okay.
minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I am an officer of Moving Oxnard Forward. I have recently attended several of the meetings for the Renew Oxnard program, meetings between a contractor called NBS and city staff and residents who pay special tax assessments for their landscape maintenance districts, or LMDs. I've heard many residents say in these meetings that they do not support converting their LMDs into CFDs and then paying Melrose tax assessments, which is clearly the actual goal of this project. I've heard residents in these meetings object to the fact that their LMDs are being charged for the cost of the contract with MBS for this project, a project that they do not want. This project takes away from the LMD funds, which are dedicated to performing maintenance of the landscaping. MBS has confirmed that yes, the LMDs are paying for their contract. Their entire project is for up to $403,650. The entire budget for all LMDs combined for the current fiscal year is just under $1.4 million. If fully carried out, this contract will consume 30% of an entire year's worth of LMD levies rather than using those funds to actually maintain the landscaping. I think these residents have a pretty good point, one that the city should be listening to, and it's one that has legal implications. LMDs are formed pursuant to the Landscape and Lighting Act of 1972. If you review the act contained in the Streets and Highways Code, look specifically at section 22655. In describing the annual LMD levy and collection process, it puts tight restrictions on the use of these funds. This section says, and I quote, "The money shall be expended only for the improvements authorized for such district," end quote. Yet you are using these monies for another purpose, and I do not believe it complies with the law. I believe these funds are being wrongfully taken from the LMDs, and those monies need to be restored and used for their intended purpose. Your attorneys aren't going to publicly tell you that it's not legal, but remember they also advise you that the infrastructure use fee was legal. This is a lousy deal for the taxpayers, and it's a repeat offense given how the city has really screwed over the LMDs in the past and never
30
made them whole.
seconds.
In 2017, city staff told the council that the city could not fund a CFD formation project. Yet here, the city is acting to force the LMD funds to be spent for exactly that, instead of paying for the landscape maintenance. The funds need to be restored to the LMDs, and although in June your staff will ask you to continue funding for this project, it needs to be stopped. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Aaron Starr, followed by Pat Brown.
Mr. Starr? Mr. Starr, you may unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much. So, city manager and I had a cordial email exchange regarding Measure M and the televising of pre-recorded staff presentations. My complaint to him was that the city is not playing the staff presentations on the public access station. City manager tells me that that's not true, that it is played. My wife and I watch Channel 35, and we've never seen it. Now, we're not watching it 24 hours a day, but the only time we've seen it is after the meeting is over, that you'll play the presentations in conjunction with the rebroadcasts of the meetings. I am requesting that this appear on the schedule on the website for the public access station channel. Currently, you have a schedule that shows when various meetings are going to be aired live and when they'll be rebroadcast. And there's nothing on there that shows when the pre-recorded presentations are being played. So most of the public is just not aware of what you folks are looking at because they don't have an opportunity to see it. And I think they should have an opportunity to see it. So my request is for a member of staff to at least let me know the schedule of when these are being played. And secondly, ideally, I'd like to see that actually posted as an addition to the current schedule that you have. Another issue of Measure M is the city, as you know, has sought a temporary restraining order to block its implementation, and the court ruled against the city. So the presumption is that Measure M is legal until we have a court ruling that says otherwise. So Measure M requires that the city provide each council member and members of the Planning Commission and the other legislative bodies with a copy of Robert's Rules. And it's also required that each one of these members receives training in Robert's rules, which my wife has offered to provide for at no charge, by the way. So my second question for the city is, does the city intend to follow the law? I'd like to know that. And since the issue of the L&D audit has come up, I thought I'd inject my thoughts on that too. I think it would do a lot to improve trust if you
30
folks would,
seconds.
disclose the contents of that. I know that 2 members of the council have voted in favor of it. There were 3 that voted against it, and at least 2 of them are no longer on the council. I'd like to think that this new council would want to, shed light on what really happened, because otherwise I don't see how you're going to talk the residents into CFDs. Just the trust isn't there. So I think that'd be a good idea. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, Pat Brown, followed by Maya. Oops, Maya would be the last one. Pat Brown.
Pat Brown, please unmute by pressing *6. Pat Brown, please unmute.
Okay, do we have Maya then?
Maya? Maya, are you there?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Good evening, Oxnard City Council. My name is Maya, and this is my brother Joseph. We're here to address a topic that is important to us. Ever since my brother and I have set our feet upon this earth, we have been taught to keep our environment clean as we possibly could. And we would also make sure that a cigarette or a piece of trash would be picked up, never to be seen again. Sadly, as we grow, we see that not everyone was taught to do the same. Joseph and I have been doing beach cleanups every Saturday with Mr. Gama, the mayor of Port Hueneme. Why can't the mayor of Oxnard or the city council members also be there? It saddens both of us to see some Saturdays worse than others. This past Wednesday, the storm came and brought mattresses, helmets, buckets, toys into the Ormond Lagoon and the ocean, but it saddened us to see what I saw. This trash is coming from all the illegal dumping taking place in the Oxnard Industrial Drain and the Rice Road Drain. All that trash ends up in the lagoon, hurting birds and fish. I asked myself, why is this happening? Is it because people can't afford to pay to dump their trash properly? Maybe with the money from Measure E could lower the fines for dump sites or have monthly free dumpsters in the city's neighborhood for anyone to dump their stuff. With all of this being said, I'm here to ask all of you for help and save our environment by advocating for trash cleanups for our parks, beaches, and any public place that needs the help. Can you please put out a dumpster in each district in Oxnard a few times a year so that people who can't afford the dump fees can dump for free? Or maybe you can make 2 free dump days per year. Or maybe you can recognize schools that pick up the most trash in a contest. Joseph and I hope that we could please work together in unity for our community. Think of it this way. We get to live on a wonderful planet that has everything we need to survive. And it is the planet we call home. But only if we take care of it will we get to keep its breathing air, growing food in its soil, and drinking its water. With all of this being said, I'm here to ask all of you for help and save our environment by advocating for trash cleanups for our parks, beaches, and any public place that needs the help. Be the change you want to see. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Maya. And Ms. Brown, do we still have Brown or?
Ms. Pat Brown?
Okay, I'm on the minute, so you can go ahead and turn it up.
Pat Brown? Please unmute by pressing *6.
I'm on the minute, so you can go ahead and turn it up.
Pat Brown? Please unmute by pressing *6.
Okay, so then She says she's on.
Ms. Brown,
Okay.
Yes,
if you could please lower your TV, we're getting an echo.
yes, I'm on the other side of the house.
Not leave that on when you're here, just because
So whatever you're hearing it from somebody else. I can't even hear the TV. And I'm in the at the opposite end of the house. You're getting that sound from somebody else. So did they hear my comments
We can hear
that I
you.
just got through making? Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, I already did it, but I'll do it again. I just want the city to know, everybody to know, that I really appreciate, and I'm sure that many others do too, appreciate the fixing of Rice Avenue and Rose Avenue going to and from the freeway from, say, Woolley Road. They're still working on it a little bit, but it's almost complete, and it is just wonderful. And it's been bad for years. I would say at least the last 3 or 4 years has just been terrible. I think that some of the truck traffic that's been hogging Oxnard Boulevard, that we need to go the opposite way from their pickups and deliveries and whatnot. They need to go the opposite way and away from Oxnard Boulevard over to Rice and Rose Avenue to go to and from the freeway. And I have a feeling that part of the reason why they haven't been is because those roads were so bad. But now that they're better, maybe we ought to make an effort to talk to the businesses over there. I did it at one time a number of years ago. We're having a problem with parking the trucks right next across the wall from the people's bedrooms in the Royal Palms Mobile Home Park, and I said that's ridiculous because you got these coolers that go on all night long and keep people awake. And so we found another place for the trucks to park, and then the people who work there park their cars in the same spot during the day when they're there, and at night it's quiet. And I would be willing to go and help to talk to those business owners to get them to get the trucks to go the opposite direction instead of coming in onto Oxnard Boulevard, to go the opposite way and go out of town. And those coming in don't come in on Oxnard Boulevard, come in on Rice and Rose Avenues. So I don't know what could be done, but I'm willing to help out. It worked the last time years ago. Maybe new owners of the businesses now, but so what? I think something has to be done. Okay, so I hope that will be okay. I hope that I don't want to create any anguish or any problems.
Do this. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a very
so if that'll work, I'm all for it. I'll do whatever I can to get them off the boulevard and to come out on 7th Street. They got to stop coming out from their area onto 7th Street, which then gets them onto Oxnard Boulevard. They got to stop that. In fact, we might even have to block that off so that nobody can go through there because.
Thank you, Pat. That's the last items tonight on the agenda, but I just want to share 2 seconds, Mr. City Attorney. I just want to thank Councilmember Lopez and Basua and Environmental Resources for helping clean the beaches over at Oxnard, Ormond Beach, and they've done an excellent job with numerous individuals from Oxnard helping clean the beaches. I just wanted to share that. Thank you so much. Our next item is City Manager's Report. And this is the COVID-19 update from the Director of Emergency Services. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to pull up the slides for this because it has important information. I have a series of updates. So I'm going to go through this a little bit slower than usual so that people can get the phone numbers and or the web addresses they may need. So give us a moment. Here we go. All right, so as everyone's hearing all over the news, we, as part of Ventura County, are moving from the purple tier to the red tier, which means it's an indication that we are making progress with regard to the pandemic that we are still in. So we'll go over some of the details. So first thing on the list is that the state's rent relief program is beginning. And it's very important for all of our people who need help with rent due to not being able to pay rent throughout this pandemic, that you seek the help. And both the city staff are here to help as well as the county staff, but ultimately this program is being administered by the state. So on the city's website, very clearly there, oxnard.org, www.oxnard.org. We have the links to the applications in both English and Spanish. If you have any specific questions, there is a rent relief hotline that you can call. That phone number is at the bottom of the slide here. It's 833-430-2122. And that hotline should be answered between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. daily. So again, that is for people who need assistance with rent payments. Please seek out the assistance. If you have a difficult time with the application or with the phone calls, you can also contact us here in the city and we will help walk you through it. But there is a lot of money available, eligible specifically for City of Oxnard residents. So please pursue that assistance. Next is the Business Assistance Program, and that is being administered by the county. That is specific to businesses and nonprofits in Oxnard. Actually, well, in the county, but we're talking about Oxnard businesses and nonprofits, and you could be eligible for $5,000 grants through this program. And the key information here is the website, vcbusinessgrants.org. And the pre-registration window is scheduled for the week of March 24 through March 30. And then the application window is the week of March 31 through April 6th. So it's a somewhat of a tight window, but that's why we're getting the information out there. Again, businesses as well as nonprofits may be eligible for $5,000 grants from this, which is actually the second business grants assistance program administered by the county. Next, with regard to moving from the purple tier to the red tier, which is less restrictive, a couple things we want to highlight. So starting tomorrow, technically it begins at 12:01 a.m. after midnight, but we don't encourage anyone to do that at midnight. But starting tomorrow, all outdoor sports can resume within Ventura County. There are high contact sports, specifically high contact outdoor sports can resume only if the coaches and the players 13 years and older get tested weekly, once a week. And specifically, the test resorts must be available within 24 hours of a competition. With regard to face coverings, the guidance requires that all the coaches and spectators must wear face coverings, and that the athletes themselves should wear face coverings when they are not actually in the game or in the competition, not participating. So if they're, for example, on the sidelines, they need to be wearing a face covering as well. So to get the all the language for these guidelines for outdoor sports, you can get it from the county's website, and there's a long address down at the bottom that takes you to the very specific document. But overall, if you just go to the county's vcrecovers.org, you'll be able to find the sports button and get to this information very easily. Okay, now other highlights of entering the red tier starting tomorrow. Retail is open again with the modifications, and they have 50% capacity. So that means 50% of what the fire code allows for occupancy of any given retail outlet. Malls are also open, also with 50% capacity. The common areas in the malls are to remain closed. And there's also reduced capacity at the food courts. And that's similar to the guidelines for restaurants, which we'll get to in a moment. Places of worship are open for indoor activity now with 25% capacity. Next is movie theaters. Movie theaters are open with 25% capacity or 100 people, whichever is fewer. Hotels and lodging open with modifications, and the fitness centers within those are open with only 10% capacity, which leads into gyms and fitness centers. They too can open for indoor usage, but with only 10% capacity. That apparently also includes climbing walls. Moving on to restaurants. Restaurants can open for indoor dining again with 25% capacity or 100 diners, whichever is fewer. Breweries and wineries and distilleries that do not serve meals can open outdoors only. So again, if you are running a brewery, a winery, or a distillery and you do not serve food, you can only open with outdoor service. And then outdoor live events with assigned seats and controlled mixing can open with modifications, but no live audiences until April 1st. So that particular category, there's a caveat, not until April 1st. Next, I want to just give a brief update about what was in the news quite a bit last week, which is finally the passage in Congress of the most recent stimulus bill. And part of that includes funding eligibility for local government. And there are 4 categories that we can apply to spend the money on. So I'm not going to read these, and it's very wordy, but I wanted to just include, this is the actual language of the bill. So I didn't want to paraphrase it and then have people misinterpret what we are paraphrasing. So that's the actual language of the bill, but it basically will provide some funding for us to help us recover from negative economic impacts. And it includes categories of assistance to households, small business, and nonprofits, or impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. It could also allow us to recover costs that we had to spend for our employees providing essential work throughout the pandemic. Also allows for us to recover lost revenue, as well as, for whatever reasons, the bill calls out specific language for utilizing funds for necessary investments in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. And there was also one particular interesting highlight, which well, not just me, but I think everybody calls it the McConnell rule. It expressly states that the stimulus funds cannot be used for funding local pensions. So the Treasury Department in Washington is working on regulations for applying to and use of these funds. We hope to get the regulations as soon as they're published, and with that information, when we have the very, very clear guidelines, staff will put together recommendations and bring it to the council to seek your direction on what to apply for and where to allocate the funds. Next is a reminder that vaccinations continue to roll out. And all the news shows that we are able to receive more doses week by week as a county. So just a reminder that we have a couple of county operated vaccination sites here in Oxnard. And we also have them, so Rose Avenue, again, this is where the Toys Babies R Us store used to be, as well as the South Oxnard Public Health Clinic. Again, there are guidelines as to who is eligible at this point. That list changes every several weeks as we get more doses and more people get vaccinated. But you do have to register for an appointment. That is the best way to ensure that you can get your vaccine. We also have a satellite site in South Oxnard at the South Winds Youth Center. Same thing, register, get your time, get your appointment, and come by and get your vaccination. The purpose of this particular site is to provide a location that is easily accessible for all of the residents who live in that very crowded neighborhood. So for many people, this is a site that is walkable. So please call and make your appointment. And then our standard reminder is that, again, as we move from the purple tier to the red tier, it is clearly an indication that things are getting better, but I have to remind everyone we are still in the midst of this pandemic. If you pay attention to the news, you know that this week, several countries, the large ones in Europe, are entering into yet another national lockdown because they're having yet another surge. So we're not out of the woods quite yet, but we are making very good progress here in our county. So remember, continue to wear face covering, continue the social, physical distancing, continue to wash your hands thoroughly and frequently, and of course, avoid gatherings with folks who are not of your household. Next update is regarding the work that our staff has been performing during this pandemic. And for that, I'm going to ask Ms. Renee Rakestraw she's on the line and she's going to give a quick summary of all the work that many of our staff who traditionally are not considered frontline staff, but how many of them have been working hard on the front lines to provide support to our community during this pandemic. So Ms. Rakestraw, I'll hand it over to you. And then I have one more update at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. So back in March of 2020, we all received COVID orders that changed the way we worked and lived. With the department title like Cultural and Community Services, pivoting towards community services with a focus on COVID response was seamless. I'll give you a brief look at this past year for our department and end with the three noted on this slide. So we started with virtual programming, as many did, but once we settled into the COVID world, we began to adapt and broaden our services and support. We developed Outdoor Rec, which hosts exercise classes in our parks using socially distanced circles. Then came a parks team of about 8 staff that visited all 53 parks 2 to 3 times daily to ensure our community was safe and reminded our community members of COVID safety measures. We visited and called over 5,000 businesses to ensure they were linked to local resources and used about 10 staff to do so. The Oxnard Pell facility became a second or overflow homeless shelter, hosting about 110 beds, and 2 staff were reassigned to daily COVID measures, COVID cleaning measures there. Then homework assistance became a need. So we turned our youth centers into homework centers with about 15 staff redistributed between 3 locations, Colonia, Durley, and South Oxnard. One of our larger tasks became food distribution. We started with senior nutrition and turned the in-person congregate meal sitting into hot meals to go, while increasing our home delivered numbers also. Year to date, we've served over 45,000 meals to Oxnard seniors, all accomplished by 11 staff. We then moved into the food distribution field, and we started by supporting small pop-up food share distributions at Pell, Colonia, and Garden City's Acres. This lasted for a few weeks where we also partnered with UFW on a distribution out of Garden City Acres, with about 10 to 15 staff at each location. But the need kept coming. So early April 2020, FoodShare opened a mega site, which became a drive-through distribution at College Park every Wednesday since. We supported this effort with approximately 90 staff at the onset. We consumed traffic control, registration, and loading to get this off the ground, and have continued our support each week. To truly show the impact of the College Park distribution, let me share some numbers with you. Over 300,000 individuals, 58,000 households, and 74,000 boxes of food have been served out of that site since April 2020 in partnership with FoodShare. This is a brief capture of how we have pivoted and will continue to serve our community. Many of these efforts I mentioned are ongoing, but we've also consumed some new tasks, as you see on this slide. Testing sites, Durley Park and Colonia Gymnasium became 2 testing sites with 2 staff at each location, open Monday through Friday from 2 to 7 p.m. with the ability to administer 200 tests daily. We take walk-ups, and due to the digital divide that we recognized early on, we placed 1 staff at a hotline that we set up Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 2:30. And I'll share that hotline if anyone needs help setting up appointment or getting to our testing sites. It's 805-385-8315. And then vaccines came next. With 7 staff, we are now supporting traffic control at 2 county vaccine sites that Alex previously shared, the Rose Avenue Clinic and South Oxnard Public Health. We are there Monday through Saturday, 8 hours each day. Lastly, in support of Southwind's vaccine site, which was shown in the previous slide, we have pivoted about 8 staff to support the Southwind's vaccine site in partnership with Vaughn's. This is a Monday through Friday effort. And again, with that digital divide, we have on-site registration at the Southwinds Youth Center, and we also have a hotline set up and manned by 4 staff Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 2:30. And let me tell you, that hotline is a hotline. The phone number for anyone that needs assistance in setting up an appointment for the Southwinds location is 805-385-8384. We do have staff who are bilingual answering that phone, along with staff on site to assist with registration and making an appointment. And I'll close with this. I am truly grateful for cultural and community services staff who have been on the front lines this past year and made COVID response their top priority. It has been a blessing for us to be able to serve our community. Back to you, City Manager.
Thank you very much for that update. And then I have one final update, which is distantly related to the pandemic, and it's actually with regard to the cannabis permitting process here in Oxnard. And the only reason I can claim that it's distantly related is because I've read statistics that during the pandemic this past year, that sales of cannabis across the country have skyrocketed. So very quickly, on March 1st, we finalized our application process for the cannabis permits. We issued a total of 16 permits, 13 of them for regular retail and 3 for retail that qualified with local equity applicants. So it marks a progress point in the cannabis process for Oxnard, but it's certainly not the end. The 16 applicants who received the permits now have 12 months to go forward, and they now need to obtain, each of them, a special use permit for the specific locations that they applied for. Again, they have 12 months to obtain a special use permit for the specific location that they applied for. And once those applicants have submitted all of their necessary documents, of course, each of them will have to go before the Planning Commission, and that's the body that will consider the use permit for each of them. So that's a quick update because I know people were asking with regard to where are we with the cannabis timeline. So we're making good progress. And that concludes my update this week. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I want to add 2 quick remarks here. I want to thank Terrell Harrison. You know, I happened to go over to College Park when they were distributing food, and there was there was hundreds, and I think a couple of thousand cars went through, and the California Reserves were there, and Terrell's staff, and also thank Terrell and his staff for the South Winds vaccine site. They did an excellent job. I just wanted to share that too. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Our next item is item G. And at this time, the members of the legislative body may make brief announcements or make brief reports on his or her activities. And further, members of the legislative body may request to schedule consideration to place any items for future agendas. And the legislative body cannot enter into a detailed discussion or take any action on this items presented in this report. And the members of the legislative process should have about 3 minutes to share their brief report unless granted by the presiding officer. So members of the city council, let me see, who do we have up there first? Okay, Councilman Lopez. And then
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. And I will also follow along with you and our city manager to help recognize and thank all our city staff who have been working very diligently throughout the past year. I too have been able or had the opportunity to experience and see the work that they're doing, and I'm very grateful for everything that they're doing. So I do also want to encourage anyone who is eligible to get the vaccine to please register. Please get your vaccine, and especially down at the Southwinds Youth Center. Starting this week, we are working with the United Farm Worker Foundation to really pull in our farm workers to get their vaccine. So I'm really appreciative of that partnership. And then lastly, last week, both Councilmember Perello and I attended the Airport Authority meeting, and they are moving forward on the master plan that is in the works. And we do expect to see a workshop on May 13th and more details to come on that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman Perello, and followed by Gabe Turan.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank all the public that spoke. And Mayor, I'd like to thank you for taking the moment of silence for our employee that passed away, letting ladies and gentlemen know that transplants is a risky deal. But today I had an opportunity to see my dentist's wife, and she had a double lung transplant. She's working on 2 years of success after that. So it is a very risky procedures, any transplant. But this gets into the realm of people that don't believe in science. Science matters, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to thank Mr. Steve Nash for bringing up the item of Ms. Lupio Kino. I definitely think that she needs to be recognized. I had involvement with her when I first got involved in neighborhood councils. I believe in her past life, she had been a Catholic nun. She's had a tremendous full life. And I do think Mr. Nash's comments that we should recognize people before they're gone. City Manager Nguyen, if we get more people with positive reports like Ms. Rakshaw, I cannot imagine there would not be, high fives throughout the city of Oxnard. This was a tremendously powerful report. I think the only thing I would add is if they could put a list exactly how many people and how much was served. Ms. Rickshaw and the staff, Terrell, city staff, the people I don't know their names of, I think it was mentioned 11 people. This is a lot of work. I had the opportunity to be involved in a food distribution. It's a lot of work, but ladies and gentlemen, you see the faces of people and it does cross your mind. Do they really need the food? Well, there will come a time when people need food and they don't ask, and they only can get help if they ask. You have to trust that people are needing the food and we are helping the best we can. I did attend along with Councilmember Lopez on the Airport Authority meeting. The Ventura Regional Sanitation District had a meeting. There was a specific closed session item where it was voted on 5-4 vote that I be not excluded from a closed session item. I do not know what the item will be, but I believe we'll be hearing about it. The Board of Supervisors today approved the 5-0 vote, the conditional use permit to extend the life of the Toland landfill. I had the opportunity to attend the Ventura Council of Governments for the very first time last week. And with the requests that have been made with respect to the audit, I'd like to make a request that we do get that audit. And if we could have the city attorney actually give us the title of that audit so we bring the other council members into play. One of the main speakers, he's been doing it for quite some time, he did get a hold of me. He lives in my district, Mr. Bartello. And we did have a lively discussion, but I need to share this with my fellow council members. Some of the items that he claims to be fact, there is a term for the opposite of fact. And he particularly went off on the city manager giving back $25,000. There is a very negative term used when somebody disputes facts. And I use that term with Mr. Bartello. So I needed to share that with the council. I do believe that the gentleman and the questions that are being asked, I do believe the rest of the council members need to be brought up to speed. But I do believe that when people come up to this podium and they make accusations unfounded, cast major accusations against people's credibility and their sense of honor, it's got to be called out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
That's my
Councilmember.
comments.
Thank you. Gabriel Turan, followed by Mayor Pro Tem McDonald. Mr. Councilmember Turan.
Thank you, Mayor Zaragoza. I just wanted to mention a few things quickly. March 25th, there will be a neighborhood council meeting for the Channel Islands Neighborhood Council. It will be over Zoom. You can find information about how to join that council meeting if you live in that neighborhood, or if you're interested in the items on their agenda by going to neighborhood services on the City of Oxnard website. In addition to that, the INCO, the Inter Neighborhood Council Organization, has a committee that has been formed to reactivate neighborhood councils or neighborhoods that have been inactive or that have never had a neighborhood council to begin with. And you can contact the first vice chair, Mr. Jack Villa, through the INCO and through neighborhood services if you are interested in finding out more information about restarting a neighborhood council in your neighborhood if you do not have one. That leads into the next thing. I commend the speakers, Ms. Chi, who spoke about cleanups. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to say that through the neighborhood council system, we are allowed to do neighborhood cleanups once or twice a year through the neighborhood council. And it's done in collaboration with environmental resources and City Corps. And so because of COVID, those have not happened for the previous calendar year and where we are right now. And that is going to remain until further notice, but know that that is something that is available. So the reason I bring up starting a neighborhood council is that if that's an issue for your neighborhood of illegal dumping, that is certainly a symptom of not having the resources or knowing of the places to leave large items like that. So know that that's available to your neighborhood if you start a neighborhood council, or I ran mine. When I did, I would open it to the entire city. Whoever brought stuff, bring it, so it doesn't end up in alleys. Lastly, two more items. The District 2 Town Hall meeting I mentioned at our last City Council meeting is scheduled for March 31st. We will have the city manager and other executive staff there to hear comments from the public and speak about common issues that have been identified for District 2. And you can sign up for that at bit.ly/D2THM. So that's bit.ly/D2THM. So it's District 2 Town Hall Meeting, D2THM. All right. And then lastly, the Ventura County Office of Education announced yesterday that they're having an equity conference that's open to the community, to educators, and it will be bilingual, English and Spanish. And you can find out more information about that at vcoe.org/equity. And I encourage people to check that out. It's going to be a very interesting conference with a lot of really great topics. And lastly, thank you to Culture and Community Services, formerly serving on the Parks and Rec Commission. I will say that they are truly a hardworking department, as are all of our departments, but they find a way to make $1 of funding look like $10 of funding. And I have to commend them so much for the work that they do. Thank you. That's my comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council Member. Mayor Pro Tem Brian McDonald, followed by Oscar Madrigal.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick comments. I would encourage everyone, if you are eligible for vaccinations for the COVID-19 virus or the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, I would encourage you to get it. Members of my family have done both the Moderna and the Johnson & Johnson, the single dose shot. And I've heard a lot of people talk about side effects. I can tell you that I had minimal side effects. It was a sore joint the next morning, and that was about it. And it was gone after my first cup of coffee. So the side effects are, as far as I can tell, are very minimal. There are some people that will have more severe side effects, but it appears that it's few and far between. Same thing with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. My family member that took that had really no ill effect at all from it. So if you're able to do so, please do so for you, for your community, for your family. And secondly, now we're moving from the purple tier down to a red tier. You will see some of the transit organizations, VCTC with the intercity bus service between here and Santa Barbara County, and also Gold Coast will probably start looking at returning to a fare system. All the agencies are trying to work together to get one fare media that will work across all of the different levels of transportation, be it intercounty or intercity or wherever, so that we're all using a similar media to make it simple. But be prepared that you will probably see a return to the fares as public transit ramps up to hopefully get increased ridership and get people back to work. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Our next speaker is Oscar Madrigal, Council Member, and Councilwoman Basu will be following him. Oscar?
Thank you, Mayor. Real quickly, I had the pleasure of attending the East Village neighborhood meeting just last week. It was a great meeting. I want to thank Mr. Henley, the chair, Mr. Arrejo, Mr. Angel Garcia for all their hard work in the neighborhood. I was well informed. I also want to thank city staff for attending. I know we had a few people from, oh great, I'm losing my train of thought. I gotta know, but I can't remember every city staff that was there, but I want to thank every single person that was there. It was very informative, and I actually probably learned a whole lot more from going to neighborhood meetings than I do as a council member. So big kudos to the city staff for not only being very receptive to the neighborhood, but getting things done. So my 100% gratitude to them. Second thing, as everyone's been talking about, the moving on to the tiers, please be careful. Please, keep everything that you need to do in mind. Just because we are moving a tier does not mean that, that the pandemic is over. As with many students are returning back to school finally, even though it might be on a limited basis and it might be difficult. So, we might have issues with daycare, so on and so forth. But please keep in mind that we're still in the middle of a pandemic. This is not only, this is to all the city, to all the county, to, state and the country. We need to work together to get this situated if you can, even though it is difficult. And I understand the concept of, many of our residents are not eligible yet to be vaccinated. So please, but if you do have that opportunity, please get vaccinated. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't as lucky as Mayor Pro Tem. I did have, a lot of side effects from my first shot with Moderna. So I wasn't so lucky, but if you have the opportunity, please go out and get your vaccine. And lastly, where was I at? Work has been getting done on Rice Avenue, as Ms. Brown stated in her public comments, Rice and Rose. So I want to thank staff for all of their hard work and getting that done and situated. And then I believe, what's that restaurant? Oh, Raising Cane's open today, and it's actually at a 3-hour wait for chicken. So please, if you have the opportunity, it is good food, but you may have to wait probably till the summer, or if not, order ahead or use a delivery app. So, but unless you want to wait 3 hours in line. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a major traffic jam there today at the grand opening. Councilwoman Basua.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take this opportunity to kind of let everybody know about a fundraising effort that's going to be conducted in Oxnard along with our police department. Probably about a month ago, you heard me talk about NAMI, who is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I want to thank the Oxnard Police Department for joining me in this great effort. And Chief Benitez and his staff. And I see Chief Benitez came on. So if it's okay, if I can just allow Chief Benitez to kind of say some remarks on my behalf, would that be okay?
Yes.
Certainly. In brief, thank you, Councilmember Basua. Just a few weeks ago, you reached out to me to talk about coordinating the effort. And we have since put together a number of staff members who have very eagerly embraced this, and we will have a very respectable showing in the county and represent Oxnard very well in raising money to promote awareness about mental illness, and we're looking forward to it. And thank you for working with us on this.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief. Thank you for your leadership and to the whole team that you've put together in order to bring awareness to this great cause. For those of you that are interested, the city, the police department has put out a link on their social media page where you can go on there. You can donate to the team as a whole, to individuals. And I'm really looking forward to working with them and getting the message out about this really, really important cause that at many times we don't really speak about. So thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember. Okay, I have a couple of words I'd like to share too. This last Sunday had the honor to say a few words over in South Oxnard to the strawberry farm workers from Good Farms at Cypress Road in South Oxnard. And to me, it's always great to see those humble hard workers and individuals, how really hard they work and working out in the fields, picking strawberries and so forth. And I also want to thank Manuel Herrera for videoing that event and also for Facebook. And also I want to wish everybody a happy St. Patrick's Day tomorrow. And remember, don't drink and drive. And of course, make sure that if you do, have somebody as a designated driver. And as it was mentioned by our city manager today, it's really important that we use our face mask, keep our distancing 6 foot, wash our hands, and avoid large gatherings. And as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, I had my shot already. My wife had a shot. And don't not be afraid to take your shot. And I think it's extremely, extremely important that we do so. And again, tomorrow, it's going to be hopefully going to go from, or this evening at midnight, we're going to go from purple to red. Red status, make sure that you support our businesses and have continue so they can continue to successfully do their businesses and so forth. And also, I want to share with at the Mayor Selection Committee, I nominated Councilman Basua and Lopez to be nominated, hopefully, to the Coastal Commission by Governor Newsom. And I hope, that we're successful. And I understand that Laura Hernandez from the city of Hueneme applied for that, and another young lady from Santa Barbara to hopefully represent this part of the state. And with that, I understand that Bert, you want to share a couple more words?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I did forget to mention the Channel Islands Neighborhood Council is having a meeting Thursday, the 25th, between 6 and 7:30. Guest speaker is the city manager. There also be a report on the water quality at the Channel Islands Harbor, and a report from the community events by the Channel Islands Harbor Director, County Director Mark Sandoval. And I want to thank Councilmember Basua for bringing up the mental health issue and the chief for adding on. But we did get a packet information. The Oxnard Fire Department hosts a virtual head shaving event to raise funds for childhood cancer research. And I'm hoping that my city can, put these things out, because there are a lot of people that don't know about this or don't get the weekly packet, and maybe they could find out about it and make a donation to help somebody. God bless, it's not them, but somebody else has a problem. So thank you, Mayor, for letting me add that.
Thank you. Probably share that in our city website. Thank you for that. Our next item is from the city manager department. This is the appointment of members to serve on the city's commission and committees and boards, and that's going to be shared by Sherry Klima. But before we do that, we have 3 speakers for that item. And I'd like to start off by saying that we have Manuel Herrera, followed by Chris Hernandez, and then Armando Delgado. Manuel Herrera, Chris Hernandez, and Armando for this item.
Mr. Herrera?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Mayor Zaragoza, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald, members of the City Council, staff, and City Manager, my name is Manuel Herrera. I'm the creator of Citizens for a Better Oxnard. However, I'm here speaking on my own behalf. And basically, I'll make it short and sweet. I wanted to thank the mayor and certain members of the City Council for their excellent nominations for certain members of our community to sit on these particular commissions and boards. For example, on the Commission for Community Relations, Adam Lopez, Chris Hernandez for the Parks and Recs. I even see Michelle Ascension for Cultural Arts Commission. That's excellent. Then we have Miguel Lopez for the Planning Commission and Steve Nash for the Measure O Citizens Oversight Committee. I think these are excellent choices, so I thank you for that. I also thank them and the other nominees, although I don't personally know them. That's why I didn't mention their names, but I'm sure they'll do an excellent job. And I want to thank them and the rest of the members of these commissions and boards for stepping up to the plate. Because, in order to create the city that we all deserve, we all need to do our part. So I thank them so much for their volunteer work and trying to make this city what it is and what it should be. So again, thank you all for everything. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and have a great evening. Goodbye.
Thank you, Manuel. Our next speaker is Chris Hernandez, followed by Armando Delgado. Chris Hernandez.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Good evening, City Manager, Mayor Pro Tem,
Sir?
City Council. Hello?
Okay, that's better.
Okay, sorry about
Go
that.
ahead.
Good evening, City Manager, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. My name is Chris Hernandez. I'm the Vice Chair of the Five Points Neighborhood Council. I'd like to start by thanking Councilmember Turan for nominating me for the Parks and Recreation and Community Services Commission. It is truly an honor to be nominated by someone who I admire and see as an inspirational leader in our community. I would also like to congratulate all those nominated on the rest of the citizens and the rest of the citizens who applied for any of the citizen advisory groups. Your efforts towards the community involvement is what we as a community need to continue to encourage and do. So let's continue to be engaged in the positive change and influence towards our neighborhoods and neighbors. Neighborhoods and neighbors, now that's something that I'm definitely familiar with. I am a lifelong resident of this beautiful city, and I have created many beautiful memories in the parks of our community. Not only have I had the pleasure of enjoying these parks, but I have also had the pleasure of doing some of the maintenance on our trees throughout the city. I personally have climbed some of these trees and I have trimmed them. Not only do I have personal experience with our parks, but also experience as a professional tree trimmer. And now as an engaged and informed citizen, I have been able to attend meetings and have participated in discussions on the parks and master plans. If given the chance to be a part of this group, I can assure the city and residents of Oxnard that I will take great pride and honor in bringing the park's master plans to life. I believe in building a great relationship with my peers and look forward to sharing ideas and views with people such as Roger Poirier and the rest of the group so that together we can make our parks greater, safer, family friendlier, and more enjoyable for our senior citizens. Shout out to Pat Brown, and I seize my time.
Thank you, Chris. Our last speaker on this item is Armando Delgado.
Mr. Delgado?
I am here.
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor Zaragoza, council members, staff, fellow residents. As this year's emergency rescue plan begins to stretch out, so will the roles of these amazing individuals who have stepped forward to serve our city with distinction. We, the Gold Coast Carpenters and our families, want to express our sincerest thank you to Mayor Zaragoza and all of our city council members for the hard work and dedication to our communities. These are troubling times, and you're all doing a fine job leading the way. We don't necessarily agree with negative social media nor the constant criticism of our elected officials. Enough is enough. We may not always see eye to eye on issues, but it is clear to us that you love the city, you take your role seriously, you have sacrificed a lot in service of our community, you do what you believe is right for your district as well as the rest of our city. Individually and as a group, you have protected the city and made it better. We all have a limited time on this planet, and that you have given so much of yours in service of the city is remarkable and inspiring. So thank you. And a short message from our local carpenters on the selection of these commissioners and appointment of these commissioners. On any given commission agendas, you will be making decisions that will impact several working families on topics ranging from police and fire protection, budgeting, cultural arts, waterfront projects, transportation, parking, road maintenance, homelessness, housing, water quality, utility rates, business, diversity, on and on, multiple decisions to make. To do this, you must prepare for each. Your agenda packets are typically loads of pages, and it's a lot of time that you sure don't do it for money or recognition. Each of you have accepted responsibility to represent all of us, not some of us, not one of us, but all of us. A message to the previous commissioners. You have more than earned a break, but we still need you. Please continue to give us the benefit of your wisdom and experience and stay involved. And to those who are returning and the newly elected commissioners, thank you for your willingness to serve and what you're about to undertake. I encourage all of us to put forward the effort to show how Oxnard is not like other places and that our people can actually get along, make hard choices, and enjoy each other. More than once, we have shown that we share common values and we come together for the common good. So to our dear friends, Mr. Chris Hernandez and Miguel Lopez, Adam Lopez out there also, and a few others that we made friends along the way. Good luck. Thank you for stepping forward, and you can count on the Carpenters to help you push projects through, agendas through, and any issues. Same goes to the council members and the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Armando. Councilmember Tehran, do you want to say something before we had Sherry come on?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to also echo what was stated by the speakers. Thank you to all of the residents who have stepped up to join these citizen advisory groups. This appointment is something that is incredibly important for our city, for our citizens to be involved, but also to be able to see these items that are important to the general public and go through them, vet them, and provide information to council and to staff. And they do this. I love how my fellow council member Perello states they don't even get a cup of coffee out of it. As someone who served on the Parks and Recreation Community Services Commission since 2017, it was an incredibly enriching experience and gave me a deep insight into how the city operates and how we can work toward a better relationship between the city and our residents. I do have a question for the I don't know, it's for the city manager, the city attorney. Would it be possible for Ms. Klima to read the names of all of the nominees, if assuming she wasn't already going to do that? I just want to make sure we're not violating Measure M by recreating or reenacting the presentation that was posted on YouTube.
We're going to do that. But I see that Councilmember Perello has his hand up, and also Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
But we are going to do that. Yes. Bert, you're muted. No? Okay, then. Mayor Pro Tem?
Hey, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to echo the comments of Councilmember Tehran. It's truly wonderful to see people step up and volunteer their time to help benefit the city. And there's an old proverb that talks about it takes a village to change or to raise a child. Some people say it takes a village to change the world. Regardless of how you think that proverb should be, it takes all of us to be part of our city and the future of our city. So I truly appreciate all that have applied and have been approved. And also my understanding is that we have probably one more round at our next council meeting with 2 or 3 more final nominations. So if you have applied and you're not on there, we haven't forgot about you. We're just going through the process. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And thank you so much. And I'd like to echo that. It's just great to have so many volunteers and so many excellent volunteers to help us out with our community. So this time, Mrs. Klima, you're on.
Mayor. So to the Community Relations Commission, Adam Lopez is being nominated from District 3. District 5 nominates Kalila Dorias. District 1 nominates Miguel Fernandez to the Parks and Recreation and Community Services Commission, and Chris Fernandez from District 2 to that same commission. To the Commission on Homelessness, District 4 has Ruby Dorias, and District 6 nominates Alejandro Fergoso. For the Cultural Arts Commission, Sandra Diaz will be representing District 3, and Michelle Ascension, our former city clerk, representing District 5. To the Planning Commission, Miguel Lopez will be representing the city at large. Robert Sanchez will be representing District 4. To the Mobile Home Park Rent Review Board, Eric Fruth will be representing the whole council and the whole city. And then to the Measure O Citizen Oversight Committee, Stephen Nash will be representing District 1. And as the Mayor Pro Tem did mention, there will be more nominations coming forth in the next council meeting.
Thank you so much, Ms. Klima. And just for information, that this was recorded as per Measure M. This presentation was recorded for the public also. So council members, at this time, I need a second, to appoint all these excellent individuals. Second by Bert Perello. And Madam Chair.
Mayor, who was the first?
The mayor. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald?
Yes.
Councilmember Perello?
Yes.
Councilmember Basua?
Yes.
Councilmember Madrigal?
Yes.
Mayor Zaragoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Taran,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Our next item is consent items 1 through 9. However, before we continue, we have 3 speakers for that item, excuse me, consent. And that would be Pat Brown, Larry Stein, and Christina Zubko. Pat Brown, followed by Larry Stein. This is for consent items.
Mayor, Ms. Pat Brown is not available.
Okay, and how about Larry Stein?
Mr. Stein is not available.
Okay, and how about Christina Zubko?
Yes. Ms. Zupko?
I'm here.
Yes, thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council members. On behalf of Friends of Ormond Beach and on Surfrider Ventura County, when I request that you approve the motion to renew Walter Fuller's contract for the next 2 to 3 years. So I'm speaking on behalf of those two groups. Actually, I urge you to keep his position even after Mr. Fuller retires because the 3 project partners still have no permanent land manager, a decades-old problem. And Walter Fuller's position is needed for safety and educational reasons. In addition to being a founding member of Friends of Ormond Beach, I'm a blogger for Wainimi Voice and Oxnard Voice, a contributor to Citizens Journal, Condor Call, KBTA, and other local news sources in Ventura County. Wainimi Voice alone reaches an audience of over 2,000 people. On one of my posts about Ormond Beach, a birder in Arizona responded that she's excited to plan a trip to Ormond for her next birding experience. The Condor Call goes out to audiences all over Southern California. In January, professional videographers, the Westside Storytellers, filmed a 9-minute video called Rewild Ormond that was posted on YouTube. Based on my 2 years of covering Ormond Beach as a journalist and environmental activist, I can assure you that interest in Ormond Beach is growing. It is well documented that Walter Fuller has made a positive difference for Ormond Beach. Not only has his presence reduced crime in the area, but he's also the first Ormond expert that children meet when they take school excursions to Ormond Beach. He's a teacher, a caretaker, and a local historian for Ormond Beach. Ormond Beach is now in the spotlight and is definitely the subject of much interest. Oxnard must continue to show the public that it cares very much about the wetlands, and if and when Walter Fuller retires, Oxnard would be prudent to fill his position, not eliminate it. As more people become aware of the Ormond Beach Restoration and Access Plan, the greater their need will be to keep at least part of the area secured. Please consider a partnership with Port Wainimi to share resources to ensure that the vision of the Ormond Beach that is outlined in the Ormond Beach Restoration and Access Plan actually materializes. That vision won't come true unless visitors feel safe. For our posterity, for our children, please continue to be forward-thinking. Don't just approve the motion to renew. Don't just approve the motion to renew Walter Fuller's contract. Plan on keeping the position open until you find a proper land manager. Thank you so much for your consideration, and go Walter Fuller.
Thank you, Christina. Okay, council members, we have items 1 through
Mayor?
9. Yes, ma'am.
We have 2 public speakers back on the line,
Oh, the
Mr. Stein
and Pat Brown. Oh, they came on. Okay, okay. So we'll take Pat Brown and then Larry Stein.
Ms. Brown? Ms. Brown, you may unmute by pressing *6.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes.
I have known Walter Fuller since we put him in position there on Ormond Beach, trying to keep track of what's going on down there. We've had cars show up when they shouldn't be. We had to put in gates to keep the public out when they weren't supposed to be there. A lot of people like to go there and practically sleep all night for a private place, for some private affair. And we've had to do a lot of things there in order to keep that viable and safe for people who do want to go there. And Walter, I've watched him. He will take a stressful situation and take a comment, and he will turn it around to make nice. And he has a lot more toleration for that sort of thing than anybody else I know. I'm just amazed by how he handles this thing. Plus the fact that he knows all about all of the birds and all the nesting and so forth, and he knows all about all of this because he's been interested in this from years and years and years ago. Long before we thought about fixing Ormond Beach. And so he's got the knowledge that you're not going to find it anywhere else. You're just not going to find it. You can hire somebody to be the person that's there 24 hours a day or 10 hours or 12 hours a day, whatever, but they're not going to know all the answers. They're not going to know all about the history of Ormond Beach, and they're not going to know about all the live animals and birds and whatnot that are there. And so he's the only one. So I would be just totally shocked if you cut him away. We need him desperately there. And no one else would do it for the kind of money that he takes there. Somebody else who was a real professional at that sort of thing, paid high wages at some other another location along the coast, would require a lot more money than what we're paying him. I can guarantee you that. No question about it. So we've got a jewel there, and if we let it go, we're just going to ruin the whole thing. So I hope that you go down there and spend more time there and watch and just see how he handles it. I think you would be totally amazed by how he can make nice. And he also is there for emergencies. He can call and get help. And
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. Next speaker is Larry Stein.
Mr. Stein? Mr. Stein?
Good afternoon, good evening, members of the City Council. On item J4, I'd like to have a discussion as to why we're using water funds for this project instead of general fund money. The 40,000 plus residential and commercial ratepayers are not going to be receiving the benefit of this project, of this consulting fees, because we're not getting the benefit from AWTF, the Advanced Water Treatment Facility. We're paying for the debt service on this as part of the 40,000. We're paying for the maintenance costs on this, and now we're going to pay for contracts on this. Again, the 40,000 ratepayers paying into this program are not getting a direct benefit from this program. The water fund is paying for this, but where does the water fund come from? It comes from the ratepayers. I believe having the ratepayers pay for this, subsidizing another class of ratepayers, is a violation of Prop 218. So I'd like staff to change the funding source from the water fund to the general fund and explain to why we're using water fund for this project, and the people paying into this water fund are not getting the direct benefit as a result of this project. Again, I need to have a discussion as to why the water fund is being used to pay for this, and the people who are paying into the water fund are not getting a direct benefit from this project or these projects. Again, thank you for your time. 805-824-4978, 805-824-4978. Staff is supposed to get back to me this afternoon for explanations of credits and water credits. Staff was directed to contact me, and staff did not contact me. Again, this speaks of the openness and transparency of our city government. Thank you much for your time.
Thank you, Larry. Okay, council members, we have items 1 through 9. And any clarification or Anybody like to? Councilman Perrello?
Yes, item 1, 6, 8, and
I'm sorry, how many, which ones?
item number 1, 6, and 8.
Okay. Mhm. Go ahead.
Go ahead. On item number 1, I'd like to know why these items, as the chair of the Public Works and Transportation Committee, why this item does not come to the Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. That's the only question I have on this item. The cost of the enhancements, it seems quite substantial, and it would seem that it would come to that. There must be a good explanation of why it does not.
We'll have Tatiana answer that question.
Okay. Do you want me to go to the next one?
Let's answer that one,
Okay.
then we'll go to
All right.
the 6 and then 8. Tatiana?
Councilmember Perrello, Tatiana Arnaud, your city engineer, that's a great question. The reason that this item did not originate in the committee is because it's part of the capital improvement program that was previously approved by council. So generally speaking, those go straight to council to help us deliver those projects in a more expeditious manner.
Thank you very much. That's understandable, and thank you for the clarification.
Okay, item 6.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Okay, hold on, Bert.
I think it's a good idea from now on if we state that in the staff reports, because you can't expect the council members to remember what's in the CIP. So maybe that's something we'll do differently to try to help. Thank you.
For the future, thank you.
Yes.
Item 6.
Item 6, Mr. Stein had asked a question, and I'd like to kind of follow on that. But the main question I have, these water meters that we're going to be getting, is there any lead in the water meters? We're well aware of the issues that have happened in other places in the nation with lead, and I'd like to get an answer on that. But with respect to Mr. Stein's questions earlier in his public comments, can the city attorney or someone weigh in? Are we in violation of Prop 218, which is something that continually comes up in approving these matters the way we do? Those are my 2 questions.
The city attorney or Omar, the city attorney and then Omar or city manager?
If we can have Mr. Castro answer the first part of the question, then we'll turn it over to the city attorney.
Omar?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Omar Castro, Water Division Manager. Councilmember Perrello, all of the water meters that are purchased meet the Safe Drinking Water Act no lead requirement. So we are not purchasing any meters that do not meet that requirement.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, city attorney?
So Mr. Stein has brought this issue up several times, and as in the past, the explanation is that these are elements that go into, especially with the GREAT program, the city's water supply, assurance of water supply to the ratepayers. That system-wide cost is what gets allocated.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney, because we continually hear the gentleman ask these questions, and sometimes we need to repeat the answers because many in the public think we're blowing him off. Mr. Stein is a very serious individual, and I want to make sure that he gets the respect. But Larry, we can't change the answer for you. Mr. Stein can't. I thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Okay, item 8. Item 8.
On number 8, there was a question given to me by a member of the public, and that particular item has to do with our ambulance service, and it has to do with the item is, I'm reading the item, award agreement 8299 to Whitman Enterprises LLC to provide emergency medical services, billing, and construction services. And I'd just like to get someone to explain one of the paragraphs on the second page of the item, and I'll read the paragraph because it seems that there are some in the public that don't understand this. The agreement is for a 5-year term, March 16th, 2021 through March 15th, 2026. The compensation to Whitman Enterprises LLC is 3.25% of net receipts billed and collected with an anticipated amount not to exceed $500,000 annually. Upon completion of all required services to city satisfaction, and a not to exceed amount of $2.5 million through March 15th, 2026. I believe I understand the paragraph, but the individual asking, he is asking then why are we fronting them the money that we have to front them? And I believe the answer that he got in the form of an email needs to be shared with the public.
Good. Chief Hamilton?
Actually, I'm going
Oh.
to ask the CFO to answer that.
Which
Mr.
one? Who's-
Mr. Riper, the CFO.
Mr. Riper? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. There's no appropriation, there's no budget authorization to spend money. The $500,000 per year figure is simply a not to exceed amount for compensation to be paid to women.
That makes sense.
And again, Mr. Riper, thank you very much for a clear, plain English answer to a simple question. And thank you, Mayor, those are my questions. And I'd just like to make a comment here. I believe this may be the last night for one of our individuals working in the finance department. And I want to wish Donna Ventura all the most wonderful successes in the rest of her life. She's been a tremendous asset to this department, and Mr. Kevin Riper has been a tremendous asset. Both of them tremendous hires by our city manager. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you for the entire city council. Thank you for that. Councilman Lopez, you have a...
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a comment on item 3, the Ormond Beach Caretaker Services Agreement. I know that the speakers really shared and expressed appreciation for Walter Fuller, and I just wanted to add my sentiment as well, because he is a great asset to the Ormond Beach area, and it's an area that unless you really go looking for it, you wouldn't know where it's at. So it is a great point of our coastal access for our visitors and our residents to hopefully take advantage of and get to know Walter and meet him. And he really has a true passion and love for Ormond Beach, and it's demonstrated in his dedication being there and providing the service that is very much appreciated. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I know that Walter's been there for years and years and years. So thank you so much for that. Any other concerns or comments on item 1 through 9 for consent, or do we have a motion?
Move the recommended action.
Okay.
Second.
Rello, number 1. Second, Lopez. Roll call.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Perrello,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Councilmember Basua,
Yes.
Councilmember Teran.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you so much. Our next report is K1. This is report from the Finance Department. And the subject is to revamp the chart of accounts of a new tailored Munis Enterprise Resource Planning software system. But we have 4 speakers, first of all, before we go into councilman comments. And we'll start off with Ray Platel, followed by Larry Stein. Ray, excuse me, yeah. Followed by Mr. Stein.
Mr. Blettel.
Hello.
Yes, hi. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much. Mayor, council members, city staff, and public. Reviewing the proposed Munis ERP chart of accounts, I noted that there was no accommodation for Measure E like there is for Measure O. That is, there is no separate or unique fund code for Measure E like there is for Measure O. When I questioned why, the response was that 1, Measure E revenue will be treated differently than the Measure O half-cent transactions and use tax revenue was treated back in 2009. And 2, Measure O got its own separate fund. And 3, that isn't going to happen with Measure E because it's a general tax and thus belongs to the general fund. This doesn't make sense. Measure O and Measure E are both general use taxes and can be spent any way the city feels. As such, both are treated like general fund dollars, and there is no credible reason why there isn't a separate fund code assignment for Measure E. Both have no specific target for project or program funding, and the only difference is that Measure E is forever. Let me repeat that for the public. Measure E is forever. So here it is 3 months later, and the taxpayers just now find out that Measure E monies will be treated differently than Measure O. Why wasn't this disclosed prior to the November election? Why must Measure E revenues be treated differently than Measure O? There is a proposed fund code assignment for Measure O, and it's super easy to assign a unique fund code for Measure E. Rather, the plan is for Measure E revenue to be commingled with the general fund, making it hard to distinguish which is which and track how the money is actually spent. I bet the majority of voters who approve Measure E just assume that there will be a separate accounting for these funds, plus associated citizen oversight, just like Measure O. Now, later we find out differently. So much for transparency. It is claimed that going forward, it will be possible to track inside the general fund just how Measure E revenue is spent. However, why not make tracking and sorting super easy and just assign a unique fund code for Measure E? I truly believe this is what the public expected the city would do. Currently, none of the proposed munis COAs are locked in concrete. So now is the time to execute this change and demonstrate to the public that this city is truthful when it speaks transparency. Don't just use transparency as a buzzword. Make it your mantra. The Measure O Citizen Oversight Committee already exists, and I'm sure they'd be happy to add Measure E to their oversight duties. The citizens of the city voted for this measure, and they deserve the oversight. This is not a hard thing to do and doesn't require ordinance or anything like that. Just assign a unique fund code for Measure E as you mature the ERP COAs. As a matter of fact, I note that fund code number 106 is currently available. You might consider this code. Thank you for your time. Good evening.
Thank you, Ray, and we'll have an explanation after the speakers. Larry Stein, followed by Douglas Partello. Larry Stein.
Mr. Stein. Mr. Stein, you may unmute by pressing
Thank you
star 6.
for the opportunity to speak on this item. I want to commend the finance department and putting some controls in the changes to the chart of accounts. Many of you are not accounting people or finance people and don't understand the ramifications of a chart of accounts. A chart of accounts is a key to any financial system. It indicates how transactions will be categorized for both income statement and balance sheet. In the past, the ability to change or add a chart of account item to the chart of accounts was not overseen by the finance department. With the implementation in place of new accounting system, it's my understanding that strict controls be put in place as to the changing of chart of accounts. One of the concerns I have, and it's been addressed to a certain extent by Mr. Riper, the fact that we many times, well, not many times, we have on occasion moved departments around and how they're categorized. For example, a number of years ago, we had an enterprise fund called the Golf Course Enterprise Fund, moved from as an enterprise fund into the general fund under parks. And I suspect that the changing of the chart of accounts will have been difficult back then, so they just added an account number and said, boom. But with controls in place, hopefully we have more concerns than that. The other issue I have is the existing reports that exist that we have on our website for prior financial statements, and they have specific account numbers listed to them. For example, the monthly expense reports have specific account numbers listed to them. How will these reports be maintained with new chart of accounts? Does one have to go back to one chart of accounts and another chart of accounts to compare two reports, especially in the next 2 years compared to the last 2 years? Again, there needs some clarification of how the chart of accounts will affect prior reports and reporting of that, especially if I go back 4 or 5 years looking for something referring to a chart of account number, and that chart of account number doesn't exist in the new system. So that needs to be clarified to a certain extent. Again, I want to commend the finance department going forward with revising and organizing the chart of accounts that makes sense, but the ability to find items on the chart of accounts doesn't exist in the old system. I quite think find it hard to exist in the new system because the software will not change significantly enough to make access of transactions.
40
For example,
seconds.
legal fees. Very hard to track legal fees in the old system. Probably very hard to track legal fees in this system. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Larry. Our next speaker is Douglas Partello, followed by Aaron Starr. Douglas, followed by Mr. Starr.
Yes, hello? Hello?
Mr. Portello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, and City Council. Before I speak on this item, I do believe I should have an opportunity to respond to Councilman Perello's comment. I believe the man called me a liar. And I think that there needs to be a little clarification because there may be some misunderstanding about what I was asking Bert in our conversation. The point he raised in our conversation was completely unrelated to the non-agenda item that I wanted to speak to, and perhaps Bert was a little confused about exactly what I was
Portello,
asking
Mr.
him.
Portello, can
Yeah.
you address a chair, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes, Chair. My non-agenda item, and it's related also to my conversation with Bert, is I was asking for a agenda item to be placed on a future council meeting. Bert had promised that item he would ask for from the council. And I believe there may have been a little confusion there in his understanding of what I was asking for, because he asked.
Mayor, I'm sorry, but this is not germane to the item he called to speak on. This is turned into a public debate. I think it's inappropriate.
Well, the man
I
called me a
apologize.
liar, and I believe I should have an opportunity to respond.
But let's not comment directly for individuals, but go ahead and
Okay.
comment
Okay. Well, I'll direct my comments to you, Mayor, then.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I am asking the council to consider is to make an agenda item to place the LMD audit that was held secret, to make that up for vote, to make it a future agenda item. And then perhaps there was just a little confusion. The other comment was unrelated, and I don't believe I got it wrong, but I don't believe that a council person should be calling people liars in their district and citizens. I think it's unbecoming for a man of his position. Now, on the item before us now, I do believe that there should be some way to account with a new system for the Measure E money. I think that is going to rebuild trust, give better accountability, and as the other gentleman has stated before rather eloquently, that now the citizens would have an opportunity to see where those funds are. Now, we know that those funds are general use, general tax funds that go into the general fund. But with the
30
new
seconds.
system, it seems as though there's a way to track how that Measure E money is being used in terms of the types of things that they were suggesting that it should be used for, 911, all the other things that they had stated. And I think there's a way to do it. It was done before with Measure O, and I think that was good. And I think that did provide some transparency in the way that was handled. And I think with this new system, it's only as good as the data that's put into it.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Aaron Starr is our next speaker.
Aaron Starr? Mr. Starr, please unmute by pressing *6.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd like to start off by saying kudos to Kevin Riper. Kevin Riper went out of his way to send an email to me and to others who were interested in the subject, inviting me to look at the presentation and to just be aware of what was going on. And I thought that was a great way to handle it. And I would like to see that more often. I hope that's happening more often. And I just want to say, first of all, kudos to Kevin Riper for that. So my own company has gone through a ERP conversion. That was back in 2007. I can tell you that it's a pretty painful experience. And the one thing that you need to be cognizant of is that it's usually a lot more expensive and it takes a lot more time than you could ever imagine. And the software is only useful if you have people trained on how to use it. So you wouldn't want to give somebody, let's say, just any everyday software program without training. If you don't have the training, you're not going to be able to use it appropriately, and you're going to wind up with many of the same problems that you had before. You had, garbage in, garbage out. Looking at the chart of accounts, I think it looks fine. I do have a recommendation, which is I think it's useful. It's a useful exercise to create what amounts to a translation table between the old chart of accounts and the new chart of accounts. And that serves two purposes, actually three. One is that it will help you determine whether your new chart of accounts is complete. If you can put in if you can assign a spot for every single one of your old account numbers to the new account number system, then you know you've got something that's complete. If you find that there's something missing, or hasn't been a destination account number assigned, then you need to look at the listing again and update it. What it will also do is it will facilitate recasting your old financial statements into the new format. You're going to run into an issue where after July of 2022,
40
where
seconds.
the new financial statements are on one system, but they may not be comparable to the previous year's reports. So creating a translation table will make it easier for you to restate the old data so that you can compare from year to year. Because if you can't compare your results over a period of a few years, the data is not nearly as useful. I can go deeper into this, but I can see that I have very little time. But I do once again appreciate Kevin Riper for alerting members of the public about this subject coming up. So thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Before council members, before I go to Mr. City Manager and maybe Kevin Riper can answer the questions that Ray had initially.
Yes, well, I'd actually like to begin by inviting either Ms. Ventura or Mr. Riper to respond, and then I'll give a brief response as well.
Thank you.
So I think Ms. Ventura would like to go first.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. Okay, so trying to go in order to the questions that were posed. The Measure E revenue, creating a separate fund for Measure E. I just want to comment that there are lots of ways that we can report out on how money is spent. You do not need to create a separate fund to do that. And that's part of the problem that we've had with so many funds being created over the years. We have over 330 funds in our financial system. So a big part of this cleanup effort was to consolidate those funds, and funds that are part of the general fund should be in the general fund and not separated out, because then that makes it distorts a little bit what the general fund balance really is. So we have other ways to look at spending within the general fund using projects and programs and things like that. So creating a separate fund for Measure E is really not the best answer, not a best practice. Regarding the cross-reference table, both Mr. Stein and Mr. Starr mentioned that, yes, there is a translation table for every single account in our current HTE system mapped to the new chart of accounts in Munis. It's actually required. It's actually built into Munis to have a cross-reference table to the old chart so that any data that we import in from HTE will be mapped to the correct account. It's a lot of consolidation, so many funds, many divisions, many accounts are going to be mapped to fewer number of accounts, so there'll be a data that gets aggregated when it gets moved over into Munis. But there is an actual translation table, and that table can be made available for people who want to look at prior year history, which is not going to be loaded into Munis. So you won't be able to run reports in Munis going back 5 years or something like that. You have to go and look at your HTE reports, and then Munis will have, just prospective information starting in 2022-23 fiscal year. The other thing I wanted to just comment on was the golf course and the, I think Mr. Stein or, sorry, yeah, I think it was Mr. Stein said it, but the golf course was an enterprise fund initially, and then it got moved into the general fund about 5 years ago or so, primarily because it wasn't generating enough revenue to support its costs, and the general fund was subsidizing the golf course. That situation has since turned around since we've engaged a new golf course operator, and that golf course is actually generating income in excess of its operating expenses. And so we just got approval from our external auditors starting in this fiscal year, in this fiscal year's annual report, to reclassify the golf course as an enterprise fund. So just wanted to alert alert the public to that, since that was brought up in the comments. And I think I've captured all of the questions.
Is Kevin or Mr. City Manager?
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing to add to what Ms. Ventura said, but I'll defer to the city manager for some further comments on Measure E.
Thank you,
Yes,
Kevin.
Thank you. So I do want to respond to that because I think the arguments being made are just wrong. And let me start with going back to when this measure was on the ballot. Nobody ever stated that it would be tracked separately. Nobody ever stated that it would be part of the Measure O Oversight Committee. And no one certainly ever tried to claim that it was any sort of a special tax. It has always been a general tax. Now, it's ironic because not too long ago, we had our city treasurer complain or criticize the fact that Measure O was indeed segregated from the general fund. Now, another aspect of this narrative that I'm hearing that makes no sense is that we can spend the money on anything we want. And it makes it sound like we can literally spend these additional tax revenues on anything we want. And the fact is we cannot. We can only spend this revenue on municipal expenses such as public safety, recreation, libraries, human resources, information technology, and so on and so on. Even whether you like it or not, attorneys, municipal expenses. We cannot, for example, I can't go and purchase a city manager Maserati. Can't be done. I can't go and purchase a sailboat or I don't know, what else could it be? A personal jet to fly me to a conference. We cannot spend these tax dollars on anything we want. They are restricted to municipal expenses allowable. Now, the other aspect of how do we track it? It's actually quite simple. There are several ways. You can certainly look at the current budget that we have, which gives you a very clear baseline of where we've been. And then starting with the next year's budget, it'll be very easy in the budget document itself to see where this money is being invested. And those are decisions to be made by the city council. You can also see a clear indication between what the council decided to fund last time, as well as what they're directing us in terms of policy direction with the priorities for the next 5 years. And as we stated during that workshop to set the priorities, that the future budgets year to year should include and reflect what the council's policy direction is in terms of priorities. So in fact, it will be very easy to track how Measure E is being invested back into our community. Again, it's the budget document will do a very good job of that. And I expect that, as we've stated before, with that document and with the priorities, the council and the administration and the public, we can all hold each other accountable. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. City Manager. I just want to thank Donna Ventura and also Kevin, because this chart of accounts, the HC, it's a hard copy type of accounts. It's 20 years old, and one of the things that I like when I saw the report on the pre-recorded item is that now you're going to have a fund. It's going to have a department. It's a division. It's actually called. It's going to share the activity, sub-accounts, program elements, and you're going to find out if you have any money in that account or not. And before, my understanding, there was monies that were expended that were not in that account, and my understanding is they're going from 1,700 division accounts to some workable accounts now, and numerous funds that are going to be cut down to about from 48 funds down to 43 programs, and actually streamlining the whole process from a paper to a computerized one that's going to be much easier to work with and less time and more efficient. So I just want to commend staff, Donna and Mr. Kuiper for the excellent job. So I think it's absolutely great. Council members? Okay, so again, this is Bert.
Yes, I would like to thank the finance department, and I'd like to thank the the city manager for bringing them in. But I would very much, again, Ms. Ventura is moving on by her choice, and wish her the very best. And it was a pleasure to watch my screen as the general manager was talking about things, and I could see Ms. Ventura smiling and nodding her head. And I can tell you, as a council member who's been here since June of 13, this is a different day with these people that we have in the finance department and the manager that we have at this time. A different day. And for you younger council members, and that is not a disrespectful term, you have no idea what it was like. Councilmember McDonald can inform you. You can double check. Thank you very much, Ms. Ventura. Thank you, Mr. Riper, and thank you, Mayor. And if there are no other comments, when it comes time, I'll make a motion to approve this.
Yep. Oh, let's hold that motion because we have Councilmember Turan and Lopez and Mayor Pro Tem, and we'll take a second after that. Hopefully. Okay, Councilman Turan, followed by Lopez, and then Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also just wanted to thank staff for this. As someone who, I'm not a CPA or a financial expert by any means. However, I do oversee a number of budgets through my job and have to develop and propose budgets and track them throughout the year and open them and close them out every single year. I can see the chart of accounts and looking at where the city was and what it's moving toward. The streamlining and the efficiency of this, I have to tip my hat to you. I cannot imagine the amount of work that has had to go into this. And I just want to thank everybody, including and especially Ms. Ventura. I only recently found out that she would be leaving, and thank you for everything you've done for the city. I've heard Councilmember Perello mention the differences in information from Mr. Riper and Ms. Ventura, and I want to thank you so much for what you've done. And looking at this so people can know, our mayor just kind of referenced it at the top, the number of funds, which is the number of budgets, the number of funding sources we have, or number of budgets. It was previously 332 different funds. In the new system, it'll be 48 different funds. And I mean, that is an amazing streamlining of what we're doing here with our chart of accounts. And you don't have to be a financial expert to know that's a lot easier to work with. So thank you again for all the work on this, and I appreciate your help.
Thank you. Councilman Lopez, followed by Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much, Ms. Ventura. I didn't realize that you were leaving, so I'm sad to hear that, but certainly wish you the best, and really appreciate this great presentation, very informative. And what I wanted just to clarify with the chart of accounts and what will be connected with that in staff training is who is involved in inputting, using the chart of accounts, who will have their hands into make changes, additions, and that sort of thing. If you could just clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure,
Donna?
absolutely. Yeah, so the maintaining the chart of accounts is the responsibility of the controller in the accounting function within finance. So they are the only group and the only person really who can approve making changes, additions, et cetera. And it just needs to be, really disciplined in terms of guidelines of, when do you create a new fund, right? I just think over our history, it's been very loose. And if somebody in the departments asked for a new fund, finance would just accommodate and add it. And it can't work like that anymore, right? So that's, there will be much stronger, tighter controls within finance over when changes can be made to the chart of accounts.
Thank you. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to echo my kudos to staff on undertaking this effort. And I think it was in my first term, I asked for a printout of all of the accounts that we had in the city, and I was absolutely amazed at the number of trees we killed printing that report out because it was voluminous. And there were accounts that I'd never heard of. And I was pretty familiar with our financial system at the time, but in going through it, it was obvious that there were little pockets of money here, there, and everywhere that individually didn't add up to a whole lot. But when you put a lot of them together, it was money that we probably weren't utilizing efficiently because we had no clue where it was or what it was doing or why it was there. So this has been an incredible effort on the part of staff. It's going to be very manageable now. And I think it's going to be very good for our efficiency. And I did not know that Ms. Ventura was leaving. I'm sad that you're leaving, but I wish you well in all your future endeavors. And certainly if there's anything I can ever be of a reference for or anything else, I'd be happy to do so. So good luck to you. Thank you for all your work. And Mr. Riper, thank you very much for all your efforts too. And hopefully we'll continue moving forward. And I would second the motion, but I think this is just a receive and file, but I think it's well worth the kudos to staff. So
It is a receiving file, yes. So, but I want to thank Donna too for Ventura, because somebody's going to be very lucky having you work for that agency or that organization. And I didn't get to know you for too long, but you did an excellent job, on this chart of accounts. So with that in mind, so we don't need a second there, Mr. City Attorney. Okay, well, thank you so much. An excellent presentation. Our next item is item number 2. This is a Public Works item, and this is an award for Central Trunk Sewer Manhole Replacement Project Phase 1, specifications, number PW 21-28. And this is that the City Council approved the authorization, and we have Tatiana again.
Right.
And of course, this was recorded already as per Measure M. So Tatiana, any questions of Tatiana on this item? Okay, if not, then I need a motion. Oh, Bert?
One question. Is the firm that is going to be doing the work, is it a local firm or not? I think I sent it.
Yes, Councilmember Perello, Tatiana Arno, City Engineer. So Ayala has actually done a lot of work with our wastewater group in the past. So they do some work over in Santa Paula and other areas in Ventura County. So there is a large local presence for this company here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So I need a second, first or second?
Move the recommended action.
Mayor Pro Tem first,
Second.
second by Oscar. Roll call.
Councilmember Perello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Yes.
Councilmember Basua,
Aye.
Councilmember Basua, was that a yay?
She said aye. Mhm.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Turan.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, can I just
Just
make
go
a
ahead.
quick comment? I just realized how surprised I am that we're still allowed to call it a manhole. Just a comment.
Well, we're gonna man/women. No, I bet. Okay, let me
Yeah,
continue.
we'll call it a person portal.
Person. There we go.
Person
Thank you
portal.
so much. Our last item is City Manager Department Report. This is the adoption of the City Council's 2021-25 5-year priorities. And the recommendations that City Council adopt the 2021-25 5-year priorities, which the City Council set forth on February 25 at 2020 Special Council Workshop. And this was again placed on Measure M pre-recorded presentation. And this is again to adopt those 5-year priorities. Okay, and we have 3 speakers on that, and that's going to be Douglas Portello, Larry Stein, and Tom Cady. Douglas is the first one.
Mayor, Mr. Portillo is not available. However, we do have Mr. Larry Stein on the line.
Okay.
Mr. Stein? Yes, you have
Good
3 minutes
evening,
to
Me-
speak.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, and City Manager. As you're aware, that there are 6 priorities placed, I believe, and there are projects within each category. What was not identifiable during the presentation, and the presentation did go for 6 hours, was how to prioritize all 25 priorities overall. And again, that was not really discussed. To prioritize projects within each category, 1 through 5, and some were not included, some were not provided because they didn't make the cut per se. But how to prioritize an item, priority 1 on one category against priority 1 of another category. That really wasn't discussed, and that should be clarified to a certain extent. And I'm somewhat concerned that the items did not actually include estimated price tags for each item. Now, you don't know the exact price for each item, of course, but you can estimate the cost. So then it would behoove the City Council to know how much, at least the public to know, how much each project was estimated to cost. So when we saw the public discussions during the 6-hour meeting, you have some sort of priority as to what's going to cost to do. For example, we know that streets are going to cost us $200 million. Alleyways are going to cost us $50 million. Well, the allocation of these funds kind of behooves me if we're only having $200 million coming in over 5 years from Measure. So how do you prioritize the categories? And that was discussed briefly by the city manager, saying that we're going to see what comes along and adjust projects, perhaps with grants that may come through as well. The other thing that was disconcerting was the fact there's very little discussion, if any, on the Parks Master Plan and the priorities of these items. Again, the Parks Master Plan is going to require at least $60 to $80 million over the next 5 years, and how that's going to be prioritized against the capital improvement projects over 5 years. That is somewhat disconcerting. One item that one councilman brought up was the levee walls. You know, the levee walls are just as important as the sea walls. Rivers flood, the house gets flooded, you know, we lose value. People lose their homes. But that was not listed as a priority by City Council, even though it was discussed by 1 or 2 members of City Council. Again, levees flooding a part of the city is a concern. Water, the real priorities of water really was not clarified. What was stated was to guarantee our water supplies. To what extent is it going to be guaranteed? To what level? Are we going to expand the
30
great program
seconds.
from 1 skid? Are we going to expand the great program from 1 skid to 3 skids? Where's the funding going to come from? Bear in mind that Measure Prop 218 is set up so that the current users paying into the great program aren't paying for the services. 40,000 people are paying the benefits for another class of people. That's improper in Prop 218. It's in black and white. And one of the items of discussion. Thank you for your time because I've run out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Larry. Our next speaker, last speaker is Tom Cady.
Mr. Cady? Hi,
Hello.
Mr. Cady. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, members of City Council. This is Tom Cady, and I just had a couple comments tonight on the priorities. And as you run up to the 2021-22 budget, I would like to suggest conducting an assessment of the community assets that we have available here in Oxnard. Examples might be City Core, the Goodwill Employment Training Program, union apprenticeship programs, and take a look at these assets as opportunities for expanding or enhancing those programs to meet some of these objectives. I think we should look for opportunities to leverage our funds and look at opportunities in leveraging those funds with local programs to address the priorities, some of the priorities that you've identified. For example, linking City Core and expanded City Core with item number 2 under infrastructure and natural resources is having our local youth trained to do some of that work, gives them a job, gives them work experience. Same thing with Goodwill has a training program. Pair that up with our employee pipeline, as well as the apprenticeship program that the unions have. Bottom line is, I think we need to look at opportunities as much as the leveraging gets overused, but we do have an opportunity with Measure E and with the goals that you've identified to leverage our local assets. Oftentimes I am surprised as I look around and find out we have people, either individuals or organizations, that are doing things that maybe we didn't even know about. So rather than reinventing the wheel, perhaps we can build off of what's already going on and enhance those and more cost effectively meet the goals. Thank you very much. And I think the council did a great job in identifying, through a difficult task, goals for the city. And so now we have 5 years of work to do. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you, Tom. We have Councilmember Perello and followed by Councilmember Gabe Teran. Perello?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the public speakers on this, and I support this. This is a lesson in democracy and majority rules on these choices. As the chair of the Public Works and Transportation, I'm requesting that we bring back a study with respect to the levies, an item that was addressed here. It didn't get the support that I had hoped it would, but I would just like to remind the council of a few points. SCR3, that's the levy that protects the area of Oxnard above the Ventura Freeway. SCR1. It protects roughly 7,600 people, 2,100 residents, 1,400 commercial shopping malls, businesses. It has assessed valuation behind it of $488 million. SCR3 is the levy that protects below the Santa Clara River, but below the Ventura Freeway, That's SCR3. Protects 6,400 residents, 3,800 residential units. Has an assessed valuation of that area of $1,048 million. The chance of damage in a 1% flood, that's what these levies are to be worked, and that's the area to get. The chance of damage of a 1% flood in the SCR3 area, the amount is estimated at $345 million. Now, these come from the consultants that work with the county flood control, and the city of Oxnard and county flood control are working together. And hopefully in the future, we get these things accomplished. But I just want the entire council to understand, I'd like this to come back to Public Works, but then I'd like a full presentation to the council. We have some people that, you find out how old you are. I was here in 1969. I find out some of you were not even born in 1969. And there was a flooding in 2005 when the freeway was being widened and it took construction out. But you all have to be aware of what transpired in Montecito. And what happened in Montecito could happen here. And we have priorities: public health, safety, and welfare. That's why when this item first came up, I tried to bring it up in the public health safety area, but it is infrastructure. But I do support the decision of the council. I'm a member of the council. We stand together. But I just want all the councils to be aware. There is a major issue looming, not just in my district or another council member's district. This impacts the entire city of Oxnard. And that's my, thank you, Mayor. I do support this action.
Thank you, Councilmember Teran.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to the city manager for this presentation that was pre-recorded. I wanted to just point out to members of the public what I think is really great is that when you look at where our priorities ended up landing and you compare them to what was called out specifically in Measure E, there are some significant parallels between those two different efforts. And if you were to bring up the Measure E document that has like the different squares and colors and its proposed Measure E spending, what the ideas were around Measure E if it were to be passed, and you compare that with the items listed in tonight's staff report for the council's 5-year priorities, you will see shot for shot, line for line, items that were prioritized by this council that also pertain to or align with what was considered to be priorities potentially through Measure E's passing. So I just want to call that out because I think it's great to see that what the public and the city identified as being priority areas landed on what the priority areas are for a large portion of these priorities that we have before us tonight. And I will end by saying that I stated it at the priority special meeting that even though the levies did not end up on the list, I still intend as a council member to work with my colleagues and staff to keep that as at least a priority, even though it's not on this list, as a priority for public health and safety. And so I appreciate the comments that were made about it by Councilmember Perello. And I look forward to further discussions on that. But as it pertains to this, I support this as well. And I thank all of my colleagues and I thank members of the public and staff for all of the work that went into this.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor. And it was certainly, I think for anyone who watched the meeting, it was the special meeting to identify and set these priorities. It was a very challenging, challenging to identify and narrow down to a smaller list of priorities when there is such great need in so many areas and in so many parts of the city. And I definitely hear the information that Councilmember Perello and Turan both have brought up about the levies. And, part of it, I think part of the process in identifying the priorities is to determine which is, a greater potential safety concern for our entire city or even a smaller community. So what I would like to ask of our city manager is if, considering the safety concerns over these levies, is there a different way to work towards this issue without it being a priority if it's a concern in general? Or how would we balance and pick something over the other when there's a lot of need, a lot of concern in areas of improvement throughout the city?
Mr. City Manager.
Yes, I can give a quick response in two parts. One is, yes, we all recognize that it is difficult to set policy direction in a fashion that makes our work program for the city over the next 5 years, that makes it realistic. But on the issue of the levies, believe it or not, because I know a lot of items come through and you may have forgotten, the council also recently approved, as part of our federal legislative lobbying agenda, only 2 items to focus on in this coming year. One is to pursue the EPA to complete the cleanup of the Halico Superfund site. And 2 is to pursue through FEMA and EPA assistance in finalizing these levies.
Great.
So even though it was outside of this exercise for policy direction, you did make that clear in the federal legislative agenda that it's a priority for the council. And if I can just add to that, obviously this is the roadmap for the next 5 years of where we need to focus, but it's in addition to a lot of the work that we already have to do day to day. And the levies, unfortunately, is one of those long-term contracts that we need to stay on top of. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember, we're okay, Lopez?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that response. And again, that this has been brought up by 2 other council members. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up. Councilmember Mondragon? Oscar?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Sorry about that. Real quickly, as I guess, even though we were not in person, just by body language alone, even through Zoom, you could tell that I was upset that evening about the entire process. And I won't hide, that I was not very happy at how everything went. I know the meeting was long, it was about 6 hours, and tonight we're bringing up the levies, and the levies were probably on at about 11:30 at night. So I understand the difficulty of getting everything done. That's why at the beginning I was kind of suggested something similar to what Mr. Stein put forward, and just doing like a top 25 overall. When it comes to the category with infrastructure, everything was necessary, quite frankly. Similar to how, I believe every single council member found everything important. With community service, we had 8 items, we could only pick 5. I think we had a total of 9 items for the infrastructure aspect of this. As with anything, this is a guide, but we don't see what's in the future. So, some of these things realistically, probably not going to happen because new needs are going to be introduced in the next 5 years. With Measure E and everything in general, we are getting more money. Just take this in order of a family. We've survived off of large pizza to feed a family of 6 for so long, 2 slices a person. Just now, because we get not only a large but a medium pizza, we can't be guaranteeing X amount of slices for everyone. We still have to live within our means. And as with anything, something that you can't change is time. No matter what, no matter how busy we all get, there's only 24 hours in a day. We have to live within those 24 hours. Obviously some of us, love doing everything and anything, but at the end of the day, there's only 24 hours. And, I'm not here one way or another with the levies. I do feel it's important. But we had this discussion that evening. If we go with the levies, what were we going to take away? And it does not necessarily mean we're not going to do the levies. I'll be honest, I was, we got, in all honesty, I think we could have done a better job of, keeping the list shorter and to the point. We added a bunch of different things to different items, because we couldn't make those hard decisions of cutting certain things. So, ultimately we were planning 25. Realistically, we had 35 just because of all the add-ons. And, that's something that we never really took into consideration of prioritizing things. And some of these things are going to have, a very large monetary value that's going to take up a lot of money. Obviously, we can't, if we would have done all of this, that 6-hour meeting would probably have become an 18-hour meeting. Those of us who have our day jobs would have been late the next morning simply because we still would have been at the meeting. So I know it was a difficult decision, and as other council members have said, it doesn't necessarily matter that one of us or 2 of us or 3 of us were upset simply because we did not get what we got, but we were a group of 7, and that was the final decision. I believe someone asked me well, if Councilmember Madrigal is happy with this, then we'll see. I'm like, well, it really doesn't matter what Councilmember Madrigal is happy or not. It's majority vote. If 4 of the council members say yes and I say no, it doesn't really matter that I said no, because the yes won out. So with this, I know it was a long process, and some of us may not necessarily be totally happy with the end result, but it was a group of 7 of us, and ultimately the majority spoke. So I want to thank everyone, staff, and the other council members and mayor. That it was a very difficult process, but at the end of the day, that was our final result.
Thank you, Oscar. I just want to share, that this has been a lot of work, and I want to thank the city manager and the staff, and as was mentioned, this is a 5-year roadmap. But Mr. City Manager, my understanding, and I remember distinctively that for the priorities, we're going to bring them up every year and to match with that particular budget. I don't want people to think that we're going to do all this 5 years of 25 items over 1 year. Well, we don't have that funding, but my understanding that the priorities will be brought up. accordingly on a yearly basis to make sure that we have enough funding, to make sure that we're going to meet that roadmap. And if not, potentially, I'm just looking at maybe some options as whether, how do we look for that particular year budget-wise? So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, very straightforward. We will reduce the priorities that you adopt tonight, as you can see in the staff report, to an easy to refer to one-page document. And we'll provide it to everyone, but we also will provide it with each printed published budget. And to one of the points Councilmember Madrigal made, I think is something just to be aware of. We don't know what may happen in the world around us in the next 5 years. Certainly no one expected this pandemic this past year. So there may become a time when you're forced to make a decision to pivot from the 5-year priorities, but not, those unknowns notwithstanding, this administration, we have our marching orders, and that to me is very important. And again, I appreciate that it was a difficult process. It's very hard to say no when everything is clearly important and valuable. But again, we had to keep it manageable.
Thank you. And again, council members, the recommendation is the city council adopt the 2021-25 5-year priorities, which the city council said February the 25th on a special city council meeting. So again, the recommendation is to adopt these items. But before we do so, Bert, you want to share something else?
Yes. By my bringing up the issues of the levy, I was not trying to change the vote. I agree. And I think Councilmember Madrigal explained it the best, the majority rules. We can count. We all can count. But I want to say this. As the council member, the second longest serving council member here, this was the first night that I can tell you there was a long extended dialogue between council members. As long as I've been on the council, I never remember that happening. I wish that happened more often. I think it can be, I'm looking forward to having more of that. It wasn't testy. I mean, there was an exchange of ideas, and I had never experienced that as an Oxnard elected councilman. I'd never experienced that as a member of the public watching council meetings before I got on. So I want to thank my fellow council members for engaging in the dialogue. I'm sure we can always do better, and the exchange of ideas is good. And maybe somebody gets acid indigestion, and sometimes I lose, and sometimes I win, and sometimes we all win. Sometimes we all lose, but we're doing the best we can for the city of Oxnard. And again, I'm very proud to have been on the council when we did have that dialogue, because it was I had to tell my city manager, I'd never experienced that before. So if no one else has any comments, I'll move the recommended action.
Okay, got a first from Perello. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Lopez. And I too want to thank, the council members for that marathon meeting that we had, 6.5 hours, and it was good interaction. And I think that we have a really, really good team. So I want to thank everybody. So roll call.
Councilmember Perello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Yes.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Councilmember Basua,
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
Yes.
Councilmember Turan.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, council members. And now the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
First, second.
Second.
Second by Lopez. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you to
Yeah.
all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.